Welcome everyone to Breaking Into Tech. I'm so excited to have Liliana and Gregorio here. They are the co-founders of Sabio, and we're celebrating 10 years of Sabio changing people's lives. So I'm really excited to celebrate with you. If you're watching right now, please put in the comments where you're watching from, and feel free to say congrats to Liliana and Gregorio for all they've done and all they've accomplished. So before we get started, I know Gregorio's been on the podcast before, but Liliana, this is your first time. So how about we both have you do a little quick introduction, and Liliana, you can start.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Amanda, for hosting this. This is fantastic. We always have a lot of fun watching the episodes. And so, Liliana de Monge, I was born in Mexico. I came here when I was 5. Gregorio and I got married 20 years ago. We're actually also celebrating 20 years of marriage. We did that last week, which was a lot of fun. And have been running Sabio for the past 10 years. And it's been amazing to see so many people dedicate themselves. It's really inspiring to see people come through the program, dedicate themselves, and just drastically change their lives. And we'll talk about some specific examples of exactly what that means, because I think it's important for people to really understand holistically what it means to change your life. And so here to help and support all of our team members daily, and to be, sounding board for Gregorio here at Sabio.
Yeah. And now, Gregorio, your turn to take over and tell us a little bit about you.
So, Gregorio Rojas, co-founder of Sabio. I serve at Sabio as the chief academic officer and also as the CTO. And why is that? Because I have a technical background going back to, 99. So I've been doing this for a little while. And I, like almost all of our graduates, I am a career changer. I went to school and I had a career in something else that, when I was younger, I thought this is what I wanted to do. And in spite of things going well, I found myself in a place that I didn't want to be. Financially, predominantly, it was a financial decision to decide, you know what, I'm going to give up what I love, because what I love isn't necessarily going to be able to provide for me or any potential family in the future. So I gave that up, and I decided to go after the opportunity that, was in tech and is in tech and remains in tech, and I think is going to always be there.
Yeah, and if you want to hear more of Gregorio's story, you can go back and find it. I'll link to it in the comments below. That we've done 2 podcast episodes. One was about who you are and why you started Sabio, and then the second one was about AI and the future of AI and how Sabio is changing and adapting to AI. So I'll make sure to put those in the comments on LinkedIn and on YouTube so that people can find them if they want to check them out. But I want to start with why. Why did you guys start Sabio? And I know you mentioned like a little bit of your story of like the financial place of where you were, but it's a big leap to go from not knowing what you're going to do to starting a company. So can you tell us a little bit about that story? We can start
Let me start that a little bit, just in terms of really understanding. I mean, Sabio is just, who Gregorio and I are. And he and I actually met in college, and we met and we continued to stay engaged before we formally started dating, because we were both very involved in community organizations on our college campuses. And so he and I just benefited so profoundly from having a group of really amazing, driven, focused individuals who cared about the same things that we cared about. And so, both of our lives were transformed through that experience, right, of being part of a community and what that can do. And so when we did that in college, we then came out into the professional world, and it's like night and day, right? Like you're in the professional setting and you're 22, and the next professional closest to you is, much, much older. You come in, you clock out, and then you go home, unless you have like some random happy hour. And so it was just such a different world. And we still had that lens of like, hey, there's a lot of value in community. There's a lot of value in helping each other out and guiding people through a process. which is kind of what we experienced in college. And so we just kind of parlayed both of those things of like, okay, so now in the professional setting, what would that experience look like? And that's a lot of what drives Sabio today. And that's why we started the company, because it's like, look, people need community when they're thinking about doing something profound, like transitioning into tech. And so that thread of community is really what got us started, in my opinion. Gregorio, what else do you want to add to that?
Well, if you're going to excel, um, you could always excel on your own, but that's going to take longer, right? The idea that you can get further with the help of other people, that's not an idea that I made up or we made up. And in talking about community, it's an important aspect, it's an important factor of success. And from where I came at it from, this is why I make a good team, is that I was very practical. Like, people need access to good paying jobs. And when I say good paying jobs, I don't mean good paying jobs like a politician says. If usually a politician tells you about good paying jobs, it's probably jobs you don't want. And it's something that they're just, reading off of their notes of the things that they need to say. When I say good paying jobs, I mean excellent. I mean jobs that will surpass, median household incomes. I mean things they'll put you in the upper end of income, right? That type of job and access to that type of job, primarily just because the information of how do I get those jobs was very much controlled. You don't know where do you get this information? How do I get those jobs? And anytime you ask those questions, the answer usually comes back with something that is very daunting. And so us and me wanting to get more people into tech, I wanted to remove that. Like, there should be more people like us in tech. And one of the big barriers is, okay, how do I get there? The answer is not a 4-year institution on top of my other bachelor's degree, on top of my other degree, like on top of all my other experience. Do I really need to go through a 4-year institution? The answer is no. You can do it in 4 months and get yourself into a really good, not just job, but career.
Yeah, I love the community aspect. I love that that's in your why, because it's such a part of who Sabio is, and through the interviews, like the community that you've created through all the people is just amazing. I've heard story after story of how not only did they go through the program and it changed their lives, but they're connected to people and they're helping the people behind them. And it's not just, you do the program and then you're done with Sabio. It's a community and a lifelong thing. And I also love that you talked about, like, some people don't know. I grew up in a lower middle class family and I wanted to go to college, but I had no idea what jobs were out there. And I was really good at math and science, but I thought the only thing I could do with math was be an accountant, which is, like, looking back, it's like there's so much you can do with math, but I had no idea. And so I love how you guys are giving the opportunity, and that it's only a 4-month program and not 4 years, because college is very long, or 5, because I took 5 years to get through college. So I really love that. So how did Sabio go from an idea to the first class? I feel like this is a big question.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter, and I've been seeing this a lot, and you're going to hear this in many different places, but it's ridiculous amount of time and effort. And I actually talked to Gregorio about it before, and I said, hey, we've done a lot of these, videos. I'm like, you don't talk about the 3 a.m.s, the 4 a.m.s, the 5 a.m.s, the all-nighters. Like, you really, like, I don't think he's really been as candid about that. And it's just a ridiculous amount of work, Amanda. It's like insane, right? March of this year, I was like, hey, you're coming to bed at 3, like a.m. You're getting up at 7, like your body needs rest, right? And that's when he was pushing and launching the AI instructor, right? And so there's always stuff that needs to get done. And whether it was 10 years ago where, on the weekends we had little kids and I had to say, you can't see dad today on Saturday, he's busy. And I had to go and entertain them, right? And if we had a Sunday together, that was amazing. But it's just a crazy amount of time and effort that Gregorio has put into the organization. Sorry.
No, I hear the emotion, and it just shows like your passion and how much hard work and sacrifice. I know a lot of people tell me they want to start a podcast. My first thing is like, it's a lot of work. Like, you have no idea how much work goes into creating a podcast. And the same thing, I'm sure, with Sabio. Like, there's so much work in creating the classes and keeping it updated and staying in contact with your students. I know you're the CEO, but so many students have mentioned that you're always there to help them. You're always there to ask a question. They know you by name, and it's not like this disconnected thing. You're like part of the community, and you're active. And Gregorio's teaching and changing the courses. So do you have anything you want to add, Gregorio?
Well, look, Amanda, as you know from previous podcasts, if you let me talk, I will talk ad nauseum. So you have to be controlled with that. I'd just like to, echo what you both said. Like the thing about one of the things that I like this industry and I like the career of software development is that we always talk about a career is like you're going to be, working for someone or you work for yourself. Right. And usually you got to pick. And I tell people you got to pick your poison. Like you have to be an entrepreneur, to start your own company, to run your own company, to run your own effort. That comes with a lot of pros and cons. And to do the other thing, it comes with a lot of pros and cons. But I think the world of software development, you can almost straddle both, because if you treat yourself like you're a company of one, and you improve yourself continuously, like a regular person would at work. In the world of software development, you can very easily benefit from a little bit of both, where you have a lot of stability that working for someone might provide, but at the same time, you have a lot of choices that you can go and work somewhere else for someone else whenever you like, right? Which is very different than most people. Most people who work for someone else, work for a company, they don't have a lot of choices. So again, pushing this idea of getting into software development, provides a lot of opportunity for people for economic empowerment, right? To take that power back and to be in control of your financial future and in your life in general.
Yeah, I love it. That's so awesome. And there is, like you're saying, both sides. As like an entrepreneur, there's a lot of hard work and effort, but then if you're working in tech, you also have that flexibility. That's my favorite thing about being an entrepreneur, is the flexibility of setting my schedule. But if you're unhappy in your job and you have gone through Sabio's program, you can look for a new job and find something that is a better fit for you. So it gives you options. So what challenges did you face early on in getting the program started?
Yeah, I mean, so if you look up, if someone has a Wayback Machine, Eventbrite has deprecated our first event, which happened July 26th, 2013. That's when we officially said, hey, we're here. We're going to host our first open house. And in there, we talked about providing people a developer community, right? Because we knew that we were not just going to say, you come to a class, you graduate, you go away. It was really, you come to a program, you land your first job, and then we're going to help you. And we are committed to getting you to the point where you're making $100,000. And so we build ourselves from day one as a developer community, which is really common in the world of tech, right? So we're looking at all of this from a tech lens. Lo and behold, we're in California. They're like, honey, you are a school. You are a vocational program. And that just comes with its own insane ball of wax, right? So now you have a regulatory, the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education. They have their rules about what you can and can't do. And then, you start being vendors to different other organizations, and they have rules about what you can and can't do. Some of them are as ridiculous, this like insane when you're doing structured education. Sabio has operated 9 to 6 forever. And someone has recommended, no, you guys really need to close at 5. It's insane, right? Like, because you're school. and it's too much hours. I mean, it's just crazy. So definitely trying to mesh that, tech world is, you do hackathons, you're there 24 hours, 48 hours, right? You just get it done. And trying to mesh that into the world of vocational education in a highly regulated state like California. I mean, that's been a major challenge. Luckily, we have not only secured our first license, we then went through reapproval back in February of 22. So we're going to have 10 full years of being highly regulated, and just, I don't recommend that to anyone, honestly. It's exactly what they tell you. It's slow. Whenever you want to make a change, it takes forever. And we heard all that when we were younger, but you're always like, oh, we'll figure it out. But it's like, regulators are going to regulate. And so, I mean, that's been a big challenge.
Oh, I bet. Do you have anything to add, Gregorio?
I don't disagree with Liliana, but to add more clarity, because people tell you this coming in, and to say, oh, you're going to be relegated. Not a problem. Look, following instructions and following rules is not a big deal, but the problem is that, to put it in the context of what people might understand, if you go to a sporting game, whatever sporting game you go to, there's a set defined rules. And if the referees are going to change the rules on you or interpret the rules differently, depending upon, the hour of the day and the month of the year, like, it becomes really impossible to win that game when the rules are changing. The people who are telling you what the rules are, like, they can't agree. And retroactively, you're supposed to have known what to do in spite of having the wrong rule book, right? So it's a really frustrating thing. But that is absolutely, like, the most challenging thing about this is that process that you go through. And I agree with Liliana. Like, if you can, again, rules are fine. It's just you can't play a game if the rules keep changing on you, and that's been very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you're involved not only with the state of California, but you also are, certified for vet tech, and, like, I'm sure with the VA, there's all these rules and things that are changing. So, and there's other programs that people have mentioned on the podcast. So it that just sounds like so much work and so much of a challenge, but it's important, and it gives people more opportunities by being involved in all those different programs. So
Yeah, I mean, Sabio was definitely started with a lens for, broadening the horizons in terms of, like, who was typically considered to be a member of the tech community. If you go now to a site like Course Report, they do their annual survey, and they find that predominantly it's white and Asian men that attend coding boot camps. Right. And so Sabio does not look that way. We obviously welcome people from everywhere, but when you're located in a place like Southern California, you are definitely going to have people from, like, all walks of life. Right. And that's been important to us, right? Because it's important for any person that is really committed to being exceptional, have an opportunity based on that, right? Based on the fact that they're going to sit down, they're going to do the work. That's what needs to speak for itself, not like, what college did you graduate from? What's your social network that you have? We can give you all of that if you come to the table committed and dedicated to being your most excellent self.
yeah, and I didn't really think about it, but the diversity of the people that I've interviewed who've graduated, it is very diverse. It's not primarily white male. It's, women, men, and then different ethnicities. And so that's really cool that you're changing the way forward for so many different people. And it just feels normal to me. I didn't even notice it, but now that you mentioned it, I'm like, oh yeah, all my guests are so different in, like, their backgrounds and their culture and everything about who they are. So that's really cool.
And I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
So yeah, I don't know. We have a spot where we're going to dive deep into, how women have excelled, but that's definitely something we want to go over.
Yeah, we could do that. I was going to ask what your favorite memory from the early years are. Do you have a favorite memory?
Yeah, I do. I remember that Gregorio and I had left for a holiday break, and he and I were, at his parents' in Boston, and we got a call or an email from a young man who told us, "Hey, I got my first job, and my life is now forever changed." And it was really, really like those are the reasons why we do the work that we do, is that we want to see other people excel. It could be a form of paying it forward. But when I was in college, there was a young woman who was only a year older than I was. Her name is Liliana Arroyo. She's in Bridgeport, Connecticut. But when I hit the Wellesley College campus, that woman was insane. Like, she just knew every cheat code. She's like, this is the kind of job you want to get. This is the classes you want to enroll in. She was just like the most amazing human on this earth to help guide me through that collegiate experience. Right. And so she not only made my college days really, really, really exceptional, she set me up to succeed for life. Right. And so we want to do that for other people. Right. We want to be that cheat code. We want to say, look, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to wear. This is how you need to answer the question. Right. Like, everything is there. We have it. You just have to pay attention, follow it, and not kind of recreate your own recipe. So my favorite memories are all centered around getting calls, getting text messages, getting a Slack message, seeing a LinkedIn post where someone says, I'm now able to do this that I wasn't able to do before. And it's because I'm a software engineer. And that's exactly why Gregorio and I do the work that we do.
Yeah, and talking about the extra resources, that comes up time and time again, that it's not just a coding boot camp, but you guys also provide resource on resume, interviews, what to wear, all the things to get a job. It's not just here's the information, now you know how to code. And one of the interviews I did recently, he said that he found Sabio because someone he knew had gone through a different coding boot camp, but he was in California, and so Sabio was the right fit. But after the interview, I was like, why after the interview? He told me nobody else had that information. Like, the person who did it, they were on their own when they don't even have that network. You guys have an alumni network, and they're just kind of off on their own. Once they graduated, it was like, get out the door, you're off on your own. And so I think that's such a valuable tool that is so important, besides learning how to code, which is obviously the most important thing, but then finding a job, maybe that's even more important, because you have to be able to, if you have the skills but you don't know how to get a job, then that's not very helpful. Do you have a favorite memory, Gregorio?
Well, again, I don't want to just keep saying the same thing. I agree with Liliana. It's really impactful when people come back and tell you all sorts of stories. And so, look, the stories go just simple little stories, like I took my mom and dad out. I paid for dinner. So.
Yeah. No, I understand the emotion, because I feel the same way when I get those kind of encouraging messages, because you're changing someone's life. So I think your emotion answered the question perfectly.
But on a more fun note, I've talked about in the previous video. We talked about one of the hackathons that we won. First cohort that we had. We went out and we won a $3,500. So it was a really good prize at one of the City of LA hackathons. But another hackathon that we went to that was a lot of fun. We rolled into Santa Monica. Hackathons, for people that don't know, are developer competitions. So you go in Friday night or Saturday, 24, 48 hours, maybe longer, and you just quickly build something with the people you walked in. So the teams will be like 2 people, 2, 3 people, 4 people. One hackathon one year, we walked in with 25 people. And when I say we walked in and we planned it. So we were we knew we had it going. We were taking our recent alumni, people who are currently training. 25 people rolled in with hoodies, right? So we came in uniform. And so it was a really impactful thing to see everybody be like, oh, shit. What just happened? Who are these people that just walked in? We ended up winning that hackathon too. So that was really great. But that was fun to kind of go in there with a team, the hoodies, and just kind of honestly, I got a little kick out of it because people got a little intimidated by us walking in. And the thing is that, that's what happens when you roll with your community. It's not just you, it's 25 people coming in here. like, oh shit, like, make room. And,
Yeah.
we did win. So that was really exciting. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I love that memory. That sounds so fun. And talks about like, tech people know how to have fun too, maybe in our own unique way. But I love that memory. So, what have been some of the most pivotal moves that you guys have made over the last 10 years to help Sabio to grow into the company it is today?
Yeah, so probably a couple of pieces. Definitely opening shop in Irvine. I think that was really helpful. We also, we moved to downtown LA, which was the most centralized. When we started, tech and media was very, very, very West LA. I think there's like a saying like you don't cross the 405, like all this crazy, ridiculous stuff. So, obviously that physical expansion was important. But then because of COVID, we were forced to do 100% live remote. And we were lucky that COVID hit when there were such amazing tools available like Zoom and just so many different ways for people to connect. And so now we're able to train people that are, anywhere in the country. We actually trained a young man who lives in the Philippines, and he talks about how he was like tethered to the one little hotspot available in his town, and he is like loving life and like making crazy money living in the Philippines. And so, access, I mean, just anytime that you can expand access, it's really important. And so I'm really excited that we're able to do live remote so that, someone who's located in, in any town, if you think about it, there's 99% of major cities don't have their own coding bootcamp. You have to do live remote. So I think that's just been a fantastic, fantastic development for the industry.
Was that something that you guys were considering or thinking about before the pandemic, or did you like have to pivot as the world shut down?
No, we already had our approval to train live remote. And the way that we were doing it was that we used some software so that everybody could share screens. And then we also had purchased ridiculously expensive cameras to put them in the classroom. Our first live remote student was actually a woman who lived in Sacramento. And she did her research, super smart. She said, look, I need to learn C#. You guys teach it, but I can't move to LA. What can we do? So she was one of our first students that had that live remote experience where we had like maybe 10 people in the classroom in Culver City. We rigged up a bunch of cameras. We used software, the internet, and she trained and she got an amazing job. I think her name is Victoria, and she lives in Sacramento. So we actually did all of that before the pandemic hit. And so then once COVID was up, we didn't need to go and try to get, because they're idiots. I'm sure they probably wouldn't have given us a license in time. Right. So we had it. We actually had it. We had done that before.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy to think about how that really, allowed the business to continue and to not even miss a beat because you were able to pivot so quickly because you had all that prep work. What were you? Oh, Gregorio, what do you think about the most pivotal moves you have made to help Sabio grow?
I think the number one thing that it was early, and I don't think it was pivotal. It was just part of. I pivoted in my mind. Liliana was always determined that when we were gonna do Sabio, we're gonna do a project based experience and truly project. Like we're not just gonna work on group projects as students. Like we're gonna go and talk to an entrepreneur, a nonprofit, somebody that needs a piece of software, and let's go build them something. She was always dedicated. She was always like, that's what we needed to do. I had to, she literally had to twist my arm into it. And
you came around. I did not twist your arm.
There's always three stories, Liliana. And so that change is it's the best thing to get people work, right? And unfortunately, it's the most frustrating thing to experience as a student, having to go through the process of building an MVP, a minimal viable product. Let's go build an MVP quickly. And right now we take 7 weeks to go build something real quickly from scratch. There's an entrepreneur. This hurry in this mad sprint that people have not experienced ever. I'm just started to learn the code, and now I'm supposed to throw me into that deep end. It is really frustrating. It is extremely frustrating. The job of a software developer can be really frustrating to begin with. Now you're learning to become a software developer, and now we got to go build this thing in a manner in which, like, there's a lot left to be desired. Like, it's not entirely clear what we're going to build. And one of the things that you learn as a software developer very quickly that we teach you here is that the people that want something built, they don't actually know what they want built. So you ask them, well, okay, what should we do here? And they don't know. And so you have to kind of like just build it as you go. As they say, like, you got to build a parachute on your way down. And so it's really uncomfortable. But wow, does it prepare you for the job market? Like tremendously. Without that, like, I don't know how other boot camps survive having their students do Mickey Mouse. I mean, first of all, they have toy problems, like doing toy problems and tic-tac-toe games. Like, I don't know how other boot camp students like get by. I have no idea. God bless them, because how horrible is that experience compared to how we prepare our students, right? So then we take all of that hard work and wrap it in our career services with LinkedIn and resume and all. And so you come out of here like really good position. Wow. But it's been it came at a cost. It's really frustrating, and people get really crazy and a little nutty during that process. But super awesome decision.
And I think, Amanda, I think one of the important components of that is the fact that when we began the program, we talked to a couple of people from San Francisco who were a little snooty, and they were like, well, you're going to get people into these dead end jobs, like they were like, well, you might get them into a job, but they're going to do terrible or stay in some, like, I don't know. I think they even used the word tech ghetto, like something so insane. And you've heard our students, they go to work and they're like, oh shit, this is easier. They're all like, I've done this before. Daily stand-up. Yep. Been doing it. Code review, peer review. Oh, they don't have code review here. Like, they're all upset. They don't have coding standards. People are just checking in garbage left and right. And these are at major multi-billion-dollar companies. Okay. And they're appalled at how things are getting run. And so the test was really, can we get someone into a job? And what's going to happen once they get into that job, right? So I think that's why Gregorio and I were like, look, from day one, you graduate from the program, and once a month, we're going to have some type of alumni opportunity for you to continue to develop your skills. And so that was just built into the ethos. And now it's part of, alumni services, and it's super robust. But cohort one, those people that graduated, they came back once a month, once a quarter, to pick up a new topic. And so, this atmosphere that you always have to be learning is just really important. And if you can really embrace that, then you're going to do very, very, very well in tech. If you want to be complacent, then tech might not be the best place for you, because it's always changing. You always have to pick up things. And I think Sara Ines, one of our first students, she said, I now understand that I'm valuable not for what I know, but what I know I can figure out. And that mental model is just so important for people to pick up, because if you always want to live in your comfort zone of saying, I'm going to do what I know, and I have to find a job doing what I know, and I can only be asked to do what I know, that's not how tech works at all.
Yeah, I love that. And I have to pull in the comment from Ali because it's just so true. We are the best coding bootcamp, mainly due to these two incredible leaders who created this community. So, yay to you guys!
Yeah, no, the team's awesome. Ali's fantastic too. Totally super happy to have you on the team, Ali.
I just interviewed him on Monday, and it was a great interview. And there's all these other congratulations in the comments, so I can pull some up more of them. Congrats on all your success. 10 years, what an accomplishment.
Alexa's a rock star. Thank you, Alexa.
And there's a few more. Congrats on 10 years. Here's another one.
Oh,
from
there's
Jeff.
my primo. He's my unofficial primo from the East Coast. We have the same random last name.
So, and there's more too. Congrats. So those are
Thank you,
just
everyone.
a few, but there are people watching and commenting and cheering you guys on, and it's this has been such a great interview. So I want to hear, what programs have you implemented to, well, we kind of talked about how COVID, and then there's always changing, but is there any programs that you've implemented over the years to adapt to a changing environment? You just talked about how you can't be sitting still. You know, tech is always changing. I mean, we did an AI podcast because AI is now a big thing and it's going to only get bigger, but there's going to be more stuff. So, like, what programs, or how do you keep on top of all the changes that are happening in the tech world?
Yeah, I think, Gregorio, all the AI stuff that you have now for GitHub is huge.
Well, I guess to answer that question from a company perspective, or for what we do for our students. How do you want me to? I have to ask that question, because if not, again, I can go off. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you from what we do from our students, because I think that's probably a more important
Yeah,
one.
that would be better.
And this is going to seem like I don't know. This is not look. The answer is, you got to stick to your foundation and stick to what works. And I can tell you that this is 10 years now we've been doing this. I've wavered a little bit here and there. Again, as a chief academic officer is what we do. But, leaning on my experience of being now, look, I've been in the industry again, like since 99, a long time. The foundation of what you need to be a software developer has just not changed. It has not changed. And all the different little things that exist, and the biases that exist in tech, they just really haven't changed. And when I say biases, I'm not talking just about diversity biases. I'm talking about the biases of, like, hey, which library should we use, and what framework should we use, and should it be React, should it be Angular, should it be Vue, should it be, what should we be doing, and all these things. And the best thing that we've done, and that I've done to implement here at Sabio, is to stick to the core. Like, you need to be a great developer. What does it mean to be a great developer? You ask questions, you stay engaged, you deliver code, and all of the little buzz and all the little things that everyone's talking about all the time, about all this great new thing and this great new thing and this great new thing and this, they're not great. They're not great. They just came out. They're just like, maybe it's exciting to talk about some new stuff, but it's not great for a new developer. Not in the first 4 months, maybe not in the first year, to get distracted by all of that nonsense. So we've stuck to our core of what we build. And when I say what we build, like the developers that we build, like there's some core things that you do in JavaScript. There's some core things that you do in SQL. Like in SQL, for example, a lot of the stuff that we do, I consider it just, again, the core. I don't try to get fancy with it, but the core is done. If you do the core well, right? Like, again, if you go back to sporting analogy, if you have a team that just executes really well on some plays, like, you just can't stop them. If they're executing well, it's almost unbelievable. Like, if you can do the core really well, you look awesome, right? You could go win championships. You're just doing the core fundamentals and doing them well and doing them day in and day out. So that's what we've been doing here. And we kind of stay away from, like, all the buzzy, sexy stuff that comes out and the faddish stuff. Like, we stay away from that. And so, yeah, we do, for example, middle tier, we do C#. It's foundational, helps you go left and right when you leave here. Go do Node, sure. Go do PHP, sure. Go do Python. Absolutely, no problem, right? Go do Java. Like, transitioning from that middle tier to other middle tiers has always proven to be a really easy transition, in spite of the fact that it's not necessarily the faddish, most awesome decision. And today, if you're relatively new to tech, we have always been a very big proponent of Microsoft technologies. Today, Microsoft is super popular. But I'll tell you, 8 years ago, it wasn't. Right? 8 years ago, it wasn't, except for the fact that people who came out of our program trained with this did really well and didn't have to worry about all the other stuff that was going on. Like, because, like, if you were if you went to these boot camps that did Ruby or one of the MERN stacks, like depending on the month, you were picking up a different framework, and you were learning all these other things. In fact, you didn't even have time to learn things because look, there's 10 fads this week. We're going to learn all the 10 fads this week, which means we're just going to talk about them for 10 minutes. You're going to get lost for another 20. Tomorrow we're going to do it again, and at the end of the week, you're not going to know anything. That's just been a horrible experience. Again, I don't know how they do it over there. God bless them. But here, you just solid foundation. And as you know, like you have a solid foundation, you can just keep building. And that's been, again, that's like the best thing that we've done here. That, again, surprise has changed. We're not going to change that because it just works, right? And if someone says, well, this is not the cool, sexy stuff that's out there, look, it's pretty sexy to get a paycheck, right? It's super sexy, right? Being able to go get your new car and park it on the roof floor because you don't want anybody to ding it. That's really cool, right? That's really cool. Taking out mom and dad again, or your significant other to that fancy restaurant. That's super cool. I like that, right? Being unemployed, nobody likes that.
I love that because it's so true that the foundation is what's so important, and it is so easy to get distracted by bright, shiny things that really don't, they're fool's gold. They're just a distraction. They're not what you need to know. And so I love that answer that, you've stayed focused on what you know is the best thing. You've refined it. You've made changes as needed, but you just keep focusing on the core foundation to make you a good software developer so that you can get a job, and then you can go from there as life changes. So I love that.
I think, let me just add a tiny bit to that. I think that from day one, because we were working with adults, we had to be very, very respectful of their time, right? And so if we're telling someone, I need you here all day, I need you to work on Saturday, we understand that that comes with a massive financial and emotional burden. And so we can't take that trust and then ask you to waste it learning and doing things that are not going to have an immediate payoff. That doesn't seem fair, right? And so that's something that we've had to contend with over the past 10 years, where employers are like, well, it'd be really nice if your students did blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but will you hire them without it? Right? And if they say yes, then okay, it's not getting into the curriculum, right? Because everything that's nice to have, it's not fair for a student to not be working, to not be on the job market, learning something that day one, week one, first 30 days, first year, they may not need to use on the job. And so that is definitely a tenet that we've held very closely throughout this entire process, is be as respectful of our students' time as possible. And if we're asking you to do something and we're introducing you to something, it's for a very important reason. We're not going to tell you go and do this XYZ thing just because it's kind of cool, might be fun, but it's not going to pay a massive dividend to you on the job hunt.
I want to add a very specific example of what you just said, Liliana, and I'm not going to name names because they would crush us. There's this really big provider of technology out there that one of the things that they provide is a non-relational. They have their own proprietary non-relational database technology. We teach a relational database technology, right? Relational database. And so that's one of those things that like, it's relational databases. They're not that sexy. We want to go with NoSQL stuff. That's what we want to do. We go that's one of the things out there that's like, oh, what's cool and what's not. It's like SQL is like your grandpa's like database. No, it's not. They themselves, in talking to them about who they want to hire, it's okay if the people don't go in with any experience in NoSQL. Like, it's okay. You don't need to know NoSQL. Like, but oh my God, please, like, can we make sure that they have SQL experience? Can we make sure that they have relational database experience coming into this place where we promote our non-relational database program? So the ridiculousness in that is, I mean, it's just crazy, right? They have a product that's completely different than what we train. And they know, it doesn't matter if they know that shit coming in here or not. Like, but please make sure they know how to write SQL store procedures and they know what a relational database is, because we need them to be functional in that. Absolutely. Not the NoSQL stuff, right? And so that's the kind of stuff that, like, okay, clearly what we're doing makes sense, because even the people who have an expressed interest in making sure everyone knows this NoSQL stuff, even they, big, super big company, they realize that SQL is more important.
It goes back to that foundation you were talking about. If you have that solid foundation, then they can build on it. But if they don't have a solid foundation, they can't build on it. And so it's like you got to have that foundation. You got to know the basics to understand coding so that you can continue to grow and build. And then the other stuff comes quickly. And it's interesting that they're like, no, we need you to know this. I know we have this fancy thing over here, but you need to know the basics and the foundation, and then we can work with our people. So I think that's really cool. So you mentioned, Liliana, about women. What did you want to talk about, like how you're trying to get more women, and you talked about diversity. So what are you guys doing to get more women into coding and software engineering?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always looked at the reason why women don't come to Sabio, or why they may not join a tech coding bootcamp. I know that a facet of that has to do with the wealth income gap that women experience. So if you just look it up, it's like, women make, I don't know, a certain percentage of what their male peer cohorts make. And this holds true for everyone. They did massive studies on women who graduated from Harvard Business School. And guess what? They're not making what their peers made. So it has nothing to do, don't sit here and, tell me that it has to do with education or anything like that. This is just what happens. And so given that fact, we've always had a really, really, really aggressive women in tech scholarship that brings down the tuition. And then we've also tried to have as many women in leadership and women who are in the training room, and alumni mentors who are women, so that they can really help and support the other ladies that are going through the program. And so those are some of the things that we've done to really, we highlight so many voices. We've had lots of webinars, lots of success stories, so that women can see themselves in our alumni, know that there is a path for success for them. And, two of the ladies that have made the most coin post-graduation ever in the nation, there are a couple ladies that plus 500,000, maybe millions of dollars as software engineers, and they were both ladies. I have not had a gentleman yet reveal that to me. That might be the case. I'd love to hear it. If you're a Sabio grad, you're making more than 500,000 as a Sabio grad, tell me about it, because I'd love to know about that as well. But the two ladies have been very frank with me, which has been really amazing.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes when I'm doing an interview, I'm like, oh, I should do Sabio's because it does seem so attractive. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. JavaScript, you can start there.
I know. I took a C++ class, so I understand coding, and so I was thinking I should do the free courses.
Yeah,
with
start
my
with JavaScript.
Kids being so little, I was like, maybe in a few years when they're a little bit older, it would be something that would be really, I'd be in the right life stage, and
right.
it sounds like such a great program, and it's really exciting. So I've been thinking about it.
Yeah, start doing some JavaScript. That's what we recommend for everyone.
I love it. So if you're listening and you wonder where to start, now you know, free courses, and start with JavaScript. So the last thing I wanted to cover in the interview is, what do you guys have planned for the future? 10 years is a huge milestone. And so you said, I asked you before, you said 1,500 students in your alumni community, and you're only going to keep growing. So what do you guys have planned for the future?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely want to continue and build on the live remote, and give people as many tools while they're going through the training program, using AI to give them as much assistance as possible, right? You have students who are cranking away at midnight, and, they shouldn't have to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to wait until 9 a.m. when the queue opens, right? That's a lot of time. And so we are feverishly working, as in we, meaning Gregorio's engineering staff, in building additional tools to constantly make the learning process more fun and interactive. And, we just want to try to reach as many people in different, parts of the country as possible. I know that some people might consider us a SoCal company, but we really do now have a national network of alumni throughout the United States. Couple of people out of the United States. And so, if you're hearing us, if you're listening to us and you're in a town in middle America, definitely join an info session, learn about us, because you can tap in to the amazing alumni network through the live remote training. So I think that's just really important. It doesn't make sense for us to go and open an office in Texas, open an office in New York, because then that still creates these small silos. And there are more people that don't live in cities than people that do live in cities if you add them all up.
The other thing I want to add to that, right, is it's not just about where we are, but like when you go look for work, when we first started Sabio, it was a very rare thing for anybody to work remote, never mind new talent. But today, even though there's been, there's a little bit of a pushback now from work from home, people come into the office, it is a very big thing now, right? And even for people here in Los Angeles, like one of our Sabio Nation alumni here, they live here in the LA area. They got a job like somewhere in Illinois. So it's not always about, you live in Oklahoma and you get a job in New York City. Like you could be in New York City and get a job in Oklahoma, right? And the pay is often going to be, Oklahoma companies are probably not going to pay the same thing as in the New York City company, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's actually okay. Sometimes they pay a rate from their company in the middle of the country that you would expect in the major metro areas. So having those options and thinking about your career at that level is something really powerful and really awesome, right? I wish I had those options when I was doing athletic training, and I wish I had those options when I was first getting into tech. It was very much, I live down the street from my company. That's what you needed to be. That's just how it was, period. And it was like that for many years, up until obviously recently. But now, yeah, brand new talent, you're going to work remotely? Okay, no big deal.
Yeah, remote work has really changed the game for everyone, because you don't have to live, you can live wherever you want. And you have you're using remote work because many of your employees, I've interviewed a handful of them, and they work remotely, and they talk about the flexibility of remote work. And many of the students who graduated, they have remote jobs, and they talk about how it's given them the freedom and the flexibility to be able to work from home. And so that's a really good point. And I always like to end the interview. You already gave me one piece of advice to take the free courses, but what advice would you give to someone who's considering attending Sabio's bootcamp?
I would tell people that they already know all of the concepts that are involved in programming, right? Like, that you make lists, you know how to be efficient, right? Programming is to creating systems that allow for efficiency. And we already know that. And so what you're doing when you're learning to code is you're just really learning how to take all your structured knowledge and communicate that in the way the machines do it. And the beautiful thing is that all of the instructions are available. There's nothing secret, right? Like everything that Gregorio was talking about, like relational databases, non-relational databases, there's probably like millions of articles on that basic topic. And so that's one of the things that's so powerful about software engineering, is that everything is available. Everything is known because it's all created by humans. And so don't let yourself get kind of like confused because you may hear some term that you don't understand. It's just learning a new term for a concept that we as humans are already employing. So that's kind of like a high level overview that I like to give people right before they begin, so that they don't get all flustered, like, what's an array? What is that? I'm like, it's a list. You do a list. Like you create a shopping list, like you create all kinds of lists. It's okay. Take a breath. I've had this conversation with people.
I love that.
So what I'll add here is, right now, like if you want to make a change, make a good plan and make that change. And don't worry about, like, today, right now, if you've been thinking about this, and depending upon what information you consume, what news you consume, a lot of people get to the point where or come to the decision that right now is not a good time. And a lot of people are going to tell you like, oh, right now is not a good time. And I just have to tell you that I completely disagree with that. Like, it's always a good time to improve yourself, to educate yourself. And when I say educate yourself, like, yeah, get help, right? Get mentorship, join a coding bootcamp. It's always a good idea to do that. It's always a good idea to do that. If you want to do that and you put together a good plan, it's always a good idea to do that. Don't come up with a bad plan, right? And so from what I said earlier, here's a bad plan. Go to a school that's going to have you graduate with a tic-tac-toe application. That's a terrible plan. No matter how well you execute on a terrible plan, you're going to have terrible results. But if you execute on a really good plan, like, things are going to work out for you. And why is this so important? Like, as we talk about people coming into tech, and I'm telling you, like, if you want to get into tech, get off the bench, go do it. Because right now in the world of startups, right, people talk, oh, it's really cool, it's exciting, go to startups. The venture capital world is very much decided on, like, they've contracted a little bit. Okay. But everybody knows right now, everybody knows that this is the time where some really great companies are going to be born. And what that means for you is that you have an opportunity to get on the ground floor at some really great companies and grow with them, right? And grow with them. Like, the opportunities that exist right now in this next year or two, where like the next Facebook and the next Tesla is being created, you get to go right in at the basement floor foundation and grow with them, right? You have that opportunity right now. For example, one of our top paid developers, she got in a company at a really good spot, and she was there when they IPO'd. She was there, like, got the winnings, bought a house on the beach in Hawaii. All right. And so those opportunities don't come every day. Absolutely not. But right now, it's very much a consensus that right now, when things are a little tough out there in the world, and the access to capital is constricted compared to what it was 2 years ago, a year ago, wow, like, people are looking for that company that they know is going to blow up. And there's just a lot of excitement still in tech and in the startup world. It's just a great time to get into tech. Don't listen to the naysayers. There's always going to be, if you're going to listen to anybody who's going to tell you not what, no, stay in your place, stay in your role, stay with that awful paycheck. No, that's a terrible idea. That's a terrible plan, right? If you want to improve yourself, if you want to change yourself, if you want to move your career forward, it's always a good time to do that. Just have a good plan when you do it.
Such great advice. And I would just want to say again, congrats on 10 years. I'm so glad we got to do this interview and hear about, where Sabio came from, things that have happened over the years, and where you guys are going for the future. I think it's so exciting how you're changing people's lives. I love getting to interview graduates and hear their stories. It's just so inspiring. So thank you for everything that you do. You got lots of congrats and thank yous in the comments. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. We appreciate all the work you do on the podcast.
Thank you, Amanda. Great seeing you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.